Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting. I'm in Adelaide, obviously in a hotel room. Not always easy to set up to do a live video in these circumstances, but it is nevertheless time for a Hotspot of the Week, and because I'm in Adelaide and also because some of the most compelling markets around Australia, particularly in capital city Australia right now, are in Adelaide, I'm going to focus on a particular part of Adelaide for tonight's Hotspot of the Week. Specifically the city of Port Adelaide-Enfield in the north of the Adelaide metropolitan area. Right now, I would suggest that this is one of the leading areas in Australia in terms of the number of suburbs that are within this particular local government area that have rising demand, rising sales activity. We're currently doing the research for the next edition of the Price Predictor Index. We do it every quarter. We do it for every town and suburb in Australia, looking at a pattern of sales activity, looking for areas with rising demand, as those are the areas most likely, all other things being equal, to lead to price growth. And one of the outstanding areas in Australia right now, according to our latest research, is the city of Port Adelaide-Enfield up in north of the CBD. And number of major things happening up there with the Osborne Naval Shipyard, very much the focus of the economy up there. It's not the only thing happening up there, but it's where we're going to be seeing up to $90 billion worth of Defence Force contracts evolving over the next couple of decades, a project that's actually underway. Other things are happening, like 50 public servants being moved to that precinct, to new premises, various other things that I'll talk about in a moment, turning this historic area into a thriving residential, commercial and tourist destination. So yeah, the city of Port Adelaide-Enfield, it's quite a large local government area. It's got around 50 suburbs in it, and they stretch from about 8 kilometres northwest of the Adelaide CBD to 14 kilometres northwest of the Adelaide CBD. The core industry is very much shipbuilding, the Osborne Naval Shipyard, as I mentioned, also known as Techport, and it's the precinct that's home to the two largest naval contracts that are coming up. More on those a little bit later. Major state government presence with the South Australian government moving around 50 public servants into a new $40 million building up there, and also the location where the fertiliser manufacturer in Scitech Pivot has just moved into a new major distribution centre up there. So those sorts of activities very much the heart and soul of the economy up there. A very lively property market right now, as I mentioned, and some of the things that stand out about it are firstly affordability, and secondly very, very low vacancies. Just looking at a list of some of the key suburbs up there, certainly not all of them, because as I said, there are over 50 suburbs in this local government area, but some of the main ones, the ones that have the highest turnover in terms of sales activity. There are some which have median house prices in the 300,000s, like Gillies Plains, Rosewater and Valley View, but most tend to have median prices for houses somewhere in the 400,000s, and they include suburbs such as Blair Athol, Enfield, Durnan Court, Green Acres, Hillcrest, Largs North, Windsor Garden and others. And then there are some that are higher priced with median prices in the 500,000s. Some pretty good price growth happening in some of these suburbs. Media has this annoying tendency of generalising when it's talking about real estate markets, so they'll publish just one figure for the entire city of Adelaide, as they do for all the other capital cities, and that will tell us that, will tend to suggest there's not much in the way of price growth in the last 12 months or so in Adelaide real estate. But when you look at individual precincts, you see that there are outperformers, and this is one of them. Some of the suburbs in this particular local government area have had pretty good growth in the last 12 months, according to the CoreLogic figures. Rosewater's median house price has risen 13% in the last 12 months. Croydon Park has risen 12%. Then we have suburbs where we've seen growth of 7 or 8 or 9% in their median prices in the last 12 months. So this tends to be an area where it's been outperforming the overall Adelaide market. Rental returns are pretty good, as they tend to be in Adelaide. It certainly compares very favourably with the bigger cities in terms of affordability and also on rental yields. Most of the suburbs that we have on our list here in our report on the city of Port Adelaide-Enfield, which you can get on the Hotspotting website, have median rental yields somewhere sort of in the mid 4s, 4.5%, 4.6, 4.7. So it certainly stands out in that regard. And then when you look at vacancies, it's a very, very tight rental market. Many of the suburbs have vacancies below. In fact, pretty much all of the postcodes that make up this local government area have vacancy rates of 1.5% or lower. Some of them are below 1%. There's none of the postcodes have high vacancies at all. In fact, they're characterised by very, very low vacancies. So certainly an area that stands out in that regard. So the key thing that we always look for when we're identifying hotspots to feature on the hotspotting.com.au website is looking to the future. So the most important part of our reports on each of these locations is the section called Future Prospects. And in that regard, this part of Adelaide has very, very strong future prospects, and a lot of that relates to the fact that it's got that shipbuilding facility, tech port, and that's where the really big naval contracts are coming up, where there's going to be $90 billion spent by the federal government over the next, say, 20 or more years. They're building 12 new submarines for the Navy, 9 frigates, 12 offshore patrol vehicles, and they're also building some patrol boats to be given to neighbouring countries. Now, there's an upgrade of the shipyard underway to cater to those upcoming projects. They're spending $535 million. That's underway now to expand. There's also a naval shipbuilding college to train workers. That's part of the plan, and it's expected that eventually the shipbuilding workforce, particularly in relation to these big naval projects, is going to build up to the point where there's about 5,000 people working there. And looking more broadly, employment in the defence supply chain and allied industries is expected to create another 10,000 jobs. So it's a big deal for Adelaide generally in the South Australian economy. It's expected that work on the patrol boats will start really soon, then the frigates in 2020, and the submarines to follow in a little while. So that's a big thing. We've also got as I mentioned, moving several hundred public servants for the state government up to new premises up in this general area. There's also some large residential projects happening in the area. There's a project called Dock 1, which is a $350 million project to create 1,300 homes. And then we have the Fletcher's Slip master plan by a company called Cedar Woods, where it's about 500 homes, and that's a $160 million project. So there's plenty happening in this neighbourhood. It's, as I said, a very active market. Haven't quite finished the national research that we do every quarter, looking at every town and suburb in Australia to determine the ones where demand is rising the most. We're partway through that, but I'll be surprised if we find a local government area with more suburbs with rising demand than Port Adelaide-Enfield, the local government area of Port Adelaide-Enfield. It's certainly number one in Adelaide and South Australia in that regard. So it's a market that we're really interested in because we think the Adelaide market is one that's rising in terms of activity, low vacancies, an improving economy underpinning it all, and we think it's one that you really should take notice of. So that's the hotspot of the week for this week, the city of Port Adelaide-Enfield. I've just arrived off a plane from Melbourne in Adelaide because tomorrow night I'm going to be doing a seminar here talking about what's happening in real estate markets around the country, but with a particular focus on Adelaide, because I actually think it's one of the places that people should be paying the most attention to as we move into this new and different phase in real estate, with the two biggest cities winding down, but other markets starting to crank up, and prime amongst those right now is Adelaide. So that's it for now. That's this week's edition of Hotspot of the Week. I'll be doing it at the same time next week, focusing on another area of Australia, and look forward to talking to you then. That's it for now. Terry Ryder signing off.